We got basketball picks, football picks for the Northwestern, the Big Ten, and around the country. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Carter Byrd, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. We're also on YouTube. Just check out Locked On Northwestern, search that, and you can find us wherever you're listening. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications. You don't want to miss an episode. Make sure you give us some feedback. Make sure you leave a comment. We're looking to make the show better at all times. Today's episode is also brought to you by Underdog. Sign up on underdogfantasy.com with promo code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. All right, let's jump into picks episode, our Friday episode that we normally do. We're going to start with basketball for Northwestern. They are back in Welsh Ryan Arena after the road test at Georgetown, 7 p.m. tonight on the Big Ten Plus streaming channel. And, of course, you can find it on the radio at WGN Radio 720. Look, Purdue Fort Wayne, we talked about it yesterday. They are not, or 2 days ago, rather, they're not that impressive of a team to me. They lost to Michigan, a Michigan team that just got hammered by Arizona State, a bad Arizona State team, by the way. And when you look around, they just don't seem that impressive to me. They beat up on two very small schools, especially Manchester. They beat them by 80 in a game that, I didn't know who Manchester was coming into that game. Northwestern's defense, I think, is key in this game. Also, the lines, which these lines are brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Northwestern's an 11-point favorite in this one, and the over-under is 140.5. I think Northwestern's defense carries them through in a lot of games this year, but especially in one like this. Both these teams can get hot from three. I think the difference is it's going to be more difficult for Purdue Fort Wayne to get things inside the arc going. And then, of course, this is the Cancun Challenge campus game to kind of kick off that tournament for Northwestern. Look, Purdue Fort Wayne beat some really bad, really small schools. I'm going to pick Northwestern in this one, minus 11, and I'll take over 140.5 in this one. I do think that this one does go over. I think Northwestern can get hot from three if Purdue Fort Wayne just gets a little warm from three. I think that they can hit the over in this one for sure. Next up, we switch sports to football. Northwestern in the penultimate game of the 2022 season for the Wildcats on the road at Purdue. 11 a.m. kickoff at Ross-Ade Stadium on FS1. The line is Purdue minus 18.5. The over-under is 44.5 in this one. Northwestern's defense has to find a way to show up in this game. You have to win the turnover battle. You've not done a good job of that. Purdue finds themselves in trouble when you can get Aiden O'Connell to throw interceptions. They don't do a ton on the ground, but they do a lot of damage through the air, which is why the defense has to find a way to contain Charlie Jones and Payne Durham. That's your number one wide receiver and your tight end, your two leading receivers on this team. Charlie Jones has already gone for 1,000 yards this year with 2 games left. Do not let him go for 100 yards in this one. See how well you can contain him. They don't push the ball down the field, so I would almost challenge them to beat you in some sort of press man and see if they can beat you one-on-one. On offense, you got to take care of the football. You have to take care of the football because you have to win that turnover battle. Also, you need Evan Hull to get going. The offensive line has to make holes for him. He needs to have a big game because as he goes, the offense goes. That's been the case all year long, and I expect nothing less in this one. Unfortunately, I just don't know how much fight Northwestern has. I mean, you've lost 9 in a row. You've given your best efforts to Penn State, to Maryland, to Ohio State, and then you've struggled to kind of get off the mats after those games. Sometimes you just got hammered by Minnesota last week. I don't know where this team is at mentally. I think it's going to be a challenge. I don't know if they are up to the task on the road. It's been a grueling back half of the season. For that reason, give me Purdue to cover minus 18.5. I just think they've got enough momentum going. They've got a lot to play for. They're still in the Big Ten West hunt, and I think that will show in this matchup on Saturday. I will also take over 44.5. I think they score some points. And if Northwestern, I think it could be a game where if Northwestern scores 14 points, the over hits, because I do think Purdue is going to cover this game for sure. And that's the first time in a while I've confidently picked against Northwestern. I guess since Ohio State, I just have found reasons to feel like this Northwestern team is going to show fight. I do not have the same feelings right now with this team, and remains to be seen what happens there. It's going to be a challenge for sure for this Northwestern team, losing 9 straight, to go on the road again and try to make this a game with Purdue. In just a second, we're going to look around the Big Ten, see what the matchups are, make our picks that we do every week. But first, let's talk about our friends at Underdog Fantasy. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up college football season. It's easy to get started and easy to play while you watch your favorite team play. Easy to play in all 30 states that they are available, and over 30 states, rather. Just pick between 2 and 5 players across any team. It doesn't have to just be Northwestern. I do not think that there have not been Northwestern lines here recently on their pick'em, and decide. But you pick your players. You decide if they're going to finish higher or lower than the totals listed. And it's one of the easiest ways to play fantasy out there, and win cold hard cash on a single game. Go to Underdog to make your own picks. Sign up with promo code Locked On, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. So deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. Also, thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the greatest, from the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. All right, let's jump into the Big Ten games for this week. Of course, all of these lines brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. We're going to start with Illinois at number 3, Michigan. Michigan's a 17.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under is 42. Look, it's two good defenses, but it's a very low total for me, especially with how Michigan has handled themselves this year. I think you've got two really good running backs in this game, at Blake Corum and Chase Brown. Illinois has kind of fallen off the rails here recently, but Michigan's in a look-ahead spot, and I think that may be the key here. I think that may be the reason why I am leaning Illinois, because it's a lot of points, 17.5 in a game where look, Illinois was a ranked team just a couple weeks ago. Maybe even, I think it may have even been last week. But Illinois plus 17.5 and over 42 are my picks in this one. Next up, Wisconsin at Nebraska. Wisconsin's a 10-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 39.5. These are two bad teams. Nebraska's getting a lot of points in this one, especially as a home team. We love home underdogs generally. Two inconsistent teams, two teams that have had some moments where they've shown fight this year, and then have had some pretty low lows. But I think Wisconsin's the better team. I really do. but 10 points is a lot to give a home team here. For that reason, I'm going to take Nebraska plus 10 and under 39.5 in this one. Next up, Indiana at Michigan State. Michigan State's a 10-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 47.5. IU is horrible. They really, really are. They started hot this year. It was kind of a fraudulent start, and then they have crashed down to earth since that point. Michigan State has shown a decent bit of fight here recently, and I think that'll keep up in this one. They need a win to get to bowl eligibility in year 2 under Mel Tucker. I know he had the awesome year last year, lost a ton of talent this year, but I think getting to 6 or 7 wins, maybe even 8 wins if you win out and win a bowl game, that could be a really good way to go into the offseason for this Michigan State team. For that reason, give me Michigan State minus 10 at home and under 47.5 in this one. Next up, number 2, Ohio State at Maryland. Ohio State is a 27.5 point favorite in this game. The over-under is 62.5. Look, Ohio State has so many weapons. I know it's a look-ahead spot for them as well because Michigan, the game that everybody wants, number 2 versus number 3, is next week. But look, they're too good. They're too talented. I think Maryland's kind of been beat down a little bit over the back half of this year. C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback in the Big Ten, so he's the best quarterback in this matchup. They've got the weapons. You've seen this Maryland team show an ability to score, but they've been kind of inconsistent as well. For that reason, give me Ohio State minus 27.5, and I'll take over 62.5 in this one. Next up, we have number 11, Penn State at Rutgers. Penn State's a 19-point favorite in this game, over under of 45. So Rutgers is a really, really, really bad team. Penn State has been solid. They've handled their business when it hasn't been Ohio State or Michigan. And look, they're too consistent to me. They've got the backs. They've got a solid defense. Rutgers has been really bad. They have shown an inability to score. For that reason, I'm going to take Penn State to cover minus 19, but I think you get enough points out of this Rutgers team to push over 45 in this game. And finally, to round out the Big Ten this weekend, Iowa at Minnesota, it may be one of the biggest games of the weekend that will fly completely under the radar because it's 2 unranked teams. But this game has a lot of potential to dictate how the Big Ten West shakes out. Minnesota is a 2.5 point favorite in this game at home. The over-under is 32.5. Holy cow. That is so low. That is in my notes, I wrote, holy crap, that is so low. 2 really good defenses, 2 awesome defenses, 2 bad offenses. But one team has Mo Ibrahim, and I don't think Iowa has anything that can remotely stack up to that. For that reason, give me Minnesota minus 2.5 at home. And out of principle here, it's so low. I have to take over 32.5. I mean, you basically need just one team to get to the 20-point total, and based on the spread, the implied point totals, and you will cover that one. That's going to do it for the Big Ten picks. Of course, all those lines are brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. In just a second, we're going to take a look around the country at the biggest games going on elsewhere. But first, let's talk about our friends at Nugenix. Feeling like you just can't get in shape? It's not your fault. As men age, our body naturally loses free testosterone, the man hormone. It happens to every man and can make it difficult to stay in shape, be energetic, and active. Want more energy to counter the negative physical effects of aging? Nugenix Total T Testosterone Booster with testosterone will help you turn back the clock, re-energize your workouts, get you better results at the gym, and help you look and feel like the man you really want to be. Nugenix Total T contains man-boosting key ingredients like testosterone. It has been validated in 5 clinical studies and shown to boost free testosterone levels in men. Because Nugenix Test T boost free testosterone that the aging process robs. You'll feel stronger, leaner, and have more energy and drive and more passion too. Your partner will notice the difference. While every product professes quality, many other products use generic ingredients that are often far less than clinical grade. With Nugenix Total T, you get the same clinical potency levels used in trials, and Nugenix's formulation is backed by 10 years of science and research. Nugenix Total T is the number one selling testosterone booster at GNC. Nugenix Total T can help re-energize your life, help you get back the powerful, confident, good-looking warrior you used to be. Now get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T when you text college to 231231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back in shape fast. Absolutely free. Text college to 231231. Text college to 231231. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at nugenix.com/terms. Also, thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's jump right into it. All these lines are brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Number 4, TCU at Baylor. The line is TCU minus 2.5, over under 57. Two good offenses. Baylor's had a poor showing this past weekend, but I do think that they get back on track in this one. I feel like TCU's been on borrowed time all year long. It's a matter of time before somebody knocks them off. Can they keep it up? I just have my doubts, especially after their offense kind of sputtered last week at times. Give me Baylor plus 2.5, over 57 in this one. Next up, number 24, NC State at Louisville. Louisville's a 4-point favorite in this one, over under 44.5. NC State is not a good team. They're not a top 25 team. You cannot tell me that. Ever since Devin Leary went out, they have not been that good. They've been just getting by, really. Louisville has fought all year long. At one point, Scott Satterfield was very much on the hot seat, got hot down the stretch. Look, Louisville wins this one, but I do think it's very close. As a result, give me NC State plus 4, under 44.5 in this one. Next up, number 14, Ole Miss at Arkansas. Ole Miss is a 2-point favorite, over under 65. Both these teams coming off close losses, close emotional home losses. Ole Miss coming to Alabama, Arkansas coming to LSU. Distractions for Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin being talked about for the Auburn job. Does this affect the team this weekend on the road in the freezing cold for an Ole Miss team that may not have played in the cold all that often? KJ Jefferson, is he healthy? If he is, starting to feel pretty good about the Razorbacks. I think road SEC games are extremely difficult, and I think last week with LSU showed you that, and I expect nothing less here. I think Arkansas gives them every bit of fight. Give me Arkansas plus 2, under 65. Next up, number 22, Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 7.5-point favorite. Wow, that's a little bit shocking. Over under of 67. Just a weird game at this point. Oklahoma State kind of fell off. They've battled back into the top 25 barely. Oklahoma has had a brutal year. They've lost a ton of games. They got embarrassed by Texas in a rivalry game. There's a ton of points that OU is favored by. It's a rivalry game. It's bedlam. Generally, we see a ton of points, but I just have a weird gut feeling that this is going to be a close, grinded-out game, kind of lower scoring game than we're expecting. Give me Oklahoma State plus 7.5, under 67 in that one. Next up, the best game of the week, best two games of the weekend out west. Number 7, USC at number 16, UCLA. USC is a 2-point favorite in this one. The over-under 77.5. This is the polar opposite of that Iowa-Minnesota game. USC has 0 good wins at this point in the season. Tons of points on the total. I expect there to be a lot of points scored, obviously. I think DTR goes nuts again. And I got UCLA +2 at home. They sold out the crowd. It's their biggest student section they've ever had. Over 77.5 is my points as well. Because, I think somebody scored like 62 points last year to win that game. Number 10, Utah at number 12, Oregon. Give me Utah, or the line is Utah -2, over under of 61. Is Bo Nix healthy? Bo Nix got banged up at the end of that week. The line suspiciously moved overnight one night, about 5 points at like 2 in the morning or something, if I saw right on Twitter. Last year, you saw Utah out physical and outman Oregon all game long. Twice they outscored them 76-17. It was a beatdown. I think this is the beginning of the fall of Oregon. Utah -2 and give me under 61. That's going to do it for today. Of course, all of these lines are brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can find us. We're also on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us there. And wherever you listen, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you turn on notifications, leave a comment, give us some feedback, trying to make the show better at all times. And that's going to do it for today's episode. I'm your host, Carter Byrd. You can follow me on social media at Carter Byrd 13. And I will see you all next time.